Hello debaters, Kyle here. Before we get started, I've got some exciting news. Debate This has been nominated for the Columbus Podcast Awards in the comedy category. It's already a huge honor to be nominated, but we'll need your help if we want to win. So please go to columbuspodcastawards.com and follow the links to vote for us in the comedy category, or follow the handy link that we've included in the show notes, bit.ly/debatevote. Thank you always for your support. Keep telling your friends about us, and enjoy this week's episode. There's just a couple times where it's going to sound a little iffy, but I'm always talking about the mana in the game and not the color of your skin.
Open your mouth, prepare your tongue, because you're about to get a taste.
I cannot believe we've gone 12 episodes without me being able to talk about Final Fantasy.
Well, I know the doll is bad, so I gotta think the Dusty Balloon is less bad.
I mean, if all life everywhere ends, what have I lost?
Facial hair as a theme is not something I ever would have chosen.
So yeah, that's the one that Rock is just sweaty the whole time.
He's got that good Pony Jafar beard.
I've got 3 pages of AMA citations.
This is the Debate This podcast. Welcome to Debate This, a show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comics, video games, and how Reggie stepping down from Nintendo of America is the end of an era. Seriously, pour one out for Reggie, guys.
I high-key cried at work today. I'm not gonna lie. I was really upset that he posted a picture of him cleaning out his office, and I high-key cried at work.
My body wasn't ready for that.
Good for him. Like, obviously, people need to move on and do different things in their lives, but it's gonna be weird.
It's gonna be real weird that the president of Nintendo America's name is Bowser.
That's real good. That's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Debate This.
The real hot take.
So this week we are doing another flavor text, and it is about a subject very near and dear to my heart, and we'll get into that right now. So in 1993, Richard Garfield, PhD, created a little game to play with his friends in between sessions of Dungeons and Dragons. He wanted something quick but deep, easy to pick up but hard to master. And he combined the idea of collecting baseball cards with their like stats and rarities with the fantasy he liked in his D&D games. 25 years later, Magic the Gathering is an international success with prize pools in the millions, competing for the same esports stage as companies like Epic and Blizzard. But behind that collectible card game is actually a very deep story that has spanned decades. And today, I'm going to break down the first part of it for you.
That was my favorite behind the music intro ever.
I'm waiting for the part where the band got popular and then got hooked to hard drugs.
Yeah. But behind those cards is a very dark story.
I just want to go back and pick up on the pun that we missed, which was quick and deep, which I'm pretty sure I met at least 3 guys in college who called themselves that.
Gross.
Cha-ching.
So with me today to have the lore of Magic the Gathering explained to them are Andrew, Eartie Wizard Adept Henderson, Todd, Lynn Civi Defiant Hero Thomas,
Good.
and Matt Molimo Maro Sorcerer Cole.
You put our names through a random syllable generator. That's what you did.
I actually have my name tattooed across my knuckles. It's 5 lines on each finger.
Those are all important characters from the Magic story who were not important enough to make this breakdown.
Good.
Actually.
But like just so real talk for just a second, because I think we all have differing levels of Magic. But fun fact, flavor text, the name of this podcast, Well Then a Podcast, is exactly what we're talking about today, which is the the text on the Magic the Gathering cards. Is that I think that's where that term comes from.
It is where that term comes from. It is the text that is not rules text on Magic cards.
Did we just go meta? Is that what we just did?
Full meta. So I've got 5 pages here, guys. We'll get into it in a second. But I just want to before we do dive in, I just want to let you all know, while there are books, there are novels written about this story. Like this all comes from novels written in the 90s and early 2000s. 90% of the people who played Magic and knew the story didn't read those books. Most people
Is it only 90%?
Who knows? Most people got this story just from the flavor text on cards and the art on those cards. And then that guy at their comic shop who did read the books and told it to them secondhand. So I'm gonna be that guy for you today, and condense about 15 years worth of story, hopefully into just a couple hours.
Oh boy.
Hopefully.
Who's ready?
My body is Reggie.
I guess me? I don't know. I'm definitely not hiding in my girlfriend's closet to talk about Magic the Gathering with my friends on the internet right now. That's certainly not what I'm doing.
Of course not. Why would you? That would be silly.
Yeah. I will say, though, that the coolest part of Magic the Gathering for me, as someone who has never played or known anything about Magic the Gathering, is the art. It's very rad. I like it a lot.
Oh, it's so rad.
The art is so good. And like I said, it's because that's where they put a bulk of these like story beats into for players to see. So yeah, the art is great. We're gonna try and I've got some visual cues for the guys here so they can know what some of these characters and places look like throughout the story, and we're gonna try and get those in the footnotes for you when we do post this episode. But let's get into it. So before I get into the actual story, I'm gonna take a brief swerve and talk about just like the mana, the color pie, how quote unquote Magic works
core
in this
mechanics.
game. Yeah, the core of Magic is put into its mana system and color pie. Color pie refers to the 5 different factions within Magic.
That's the YouTube guy that everyone hates.
Stop
Got
it.
That was very good, Todd.
That was really
nobody
good.
laughed enough at that. That was very good.
That's a real thinker. I'm gonna sit on the toilet and think about that later.
Color pie.
But these 2 aspects have allowed Magic to they move from world to world, adopt aspects of different cultures. Every world, the story takes place in a multiverse. Every world kind of has a different thing about it, and the color pie really is easily transferable to these new ideas, and has kind of let it stay relevant, moving from the niche world it started in like 90s comic book stores to being one of Hasbro's like flagship properties. And except for a few angry people who you can't ever please, Magic's kept its identity over the last 20 years. Very, very little of those 2 core systems have changed. And in regards to the mana system, every other collectible card game I've played has not been able to quite get what the Magic mana system has accomplished.
But I think you can argue that every like collectible trading card game is really built on Magic. I mean, I'm thinking Yu-Gi-Oh, even Pokemon. You know, the systems that they maybe they tweak things and they build on things, but it all goes back to that core Magic.
At the very least, every card game has to be like focused through the lens of we exist in the same world as Magic the Gathering. It is or at least it was. I don't know where it stands now with like Hearthstone, but it was the largest collectible card game by a long shot for 20 years.
So wait, is Hearthstone also a physically
No.
like handled? Okay,
Mhm.
my bad. I was
Hearthstone
like,
is
wait a
only
second.
digital, so
Yeah.
it is different. So, having said all that, the Magic is built on its 5 colors of mana. The lore behind it is you channel one of these colors of mana based on connections you have to different locations. They're represented in the game by lands. So you channel your red mana from the mountains and your blue mana from the islands. And each of these different colors of mana has its own distinct properties, and the characters that affiliate with these colors have their own personalities to kind of match. So I'm going to kind of run through these real quick and kind of hope to try and catch you guys up to that. So we'll go in order. So we have white is the color of equality, peace, and justice. They draw their mana from planes. It is typically the color of like armies, non-lethal methods of dealing with creatures. It's also the color of like buffs and healers are a big one associated with white mana.
And one thing, Kyle, you said the word planes, and I feel like we're gonna hear that word a lot tonight, because Magic uses planes all the fucking time. Now this is like PLAINS.
Yes,
Oh.
plains like the fields
Great
of grass,
Plains.
like the Great
Yeah.
Plains. Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification.
That
That
thank you,
helps.
Andrew.
That
Yeah.
answers the first question I've had today.
Yeah, they're not just like all flyboys.
Yes. So these are white also typically has the smallest creatures. They like to make lots of small creatures. They deal with enchantments and equipment and weapons and kind of area of effect attacks, just things like destroying everyone's creatures or everyone's lands, stuff like that. And the every color's got kind of its big, splashy, iconic creature. And for white, that is going to be angels. Angels are kind of these beings of pure white mana. We'll move on to blue, which values knowledge, misdirection, and seeking out perfection. This is usually the color of like mental magic, trickery, artifacts, and artificers, which is actually a big wing of magic lore. Magical artifacts. It's usually associated with like water and wind. It is the only color that really has counter spells. It's the color that most will like draw you more cards from your deck. But they do have usually the weakest creatures. And their big, splashy, iconic creature are sphinxes with their like riddles and puzzles are a very quote unquote blue creature.
Blue decks are, I would say, traditionally the hardest to use.
Blue is like traditionally the favored color of Magic players because they get to feel real smart and smarmy.
It's the fox. It's the fox of the Magic universe.
Exactly. So I'll move on to black after that. Blue draws its mana from islands typically. So moving on from that, we move to black. Is the color of like power and ambition and greed. They draw their mana from swamps. This color usually is associated with death, necromancers, wealth, sacrifice, and it is the deck that will make kind of the dark deals. So you can get a really big effect at the cost of usually like life or some other resource besides mana. That is the color of like zombies and disease, usually resource denial. So it'll like cut you off from your land so you can't cast your spells. And their big splashy creature are demons. And that there's a whole history there where they didn't use demons for a while because they were tied up in the whole satanic panic of the 90s.
Oh yeah.
But
Good times.
their big splashy creature are demons.
Most importantly, the edge. The black decks bringing the edge.
Yeah.
Oh, they
Oh,
are
yeah.
like they.
That kind
You
of
can't.
edge.
You might cut yourself
Yeah.
on the edge.
especially the time period we're going to talk about today. They're very 90s edgy, like early 90s edgy
Mm-hmm.
personalities. So moving on from black to red. Red is the color of passion and creativity and freedom. Freedom would be the word I would want to take away from that. Their spells usually are tied with fire and lightning, uncontrollable rage, anarchy. There's been a push more recently to add in some other emotions besides just like rage. They've realized they kind of walked red into a corner, so they've been trying to give it a little more room by opening it up to some other emotions. But yeah, it's the color of fire and speed and uncontrollable magic. And their big splashy creature are dragons, which are the just across throughout Magic's lore are dragons. Dragons are everywhere because they're dragons and they're awesome. And that leaves us with green. It's the color of growth and life.
The noob trap.
The noob trap. It's definitely the color that has the largest creatures. So new players tend to gravitate towards that. It's also the color of like ramp, life gain. It's also got buffs. It shares that with white. And a big part of its identity is being against anything unnatural. So it will tear down cities. It will destroy these artifacts that we're going to talk about. It's the most resistant to change as well. And their big iconic creature are going to be hydras. With their, you cut off one head, more grow back. It is the color of growth kind of thing. And we will kind of stop here for questions. Anything you guys need cleared up? You guys all
I think all that. I think if anyone is even remotely familiar with Magic the Gathering or has seen more than 4 cards in one place at one time, they've probably seen mana.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was probably the first, as like a second grader, I was like, oh, I draw my power from this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I didn't get into Magic the Gathering and I got into Pokemon cards, like, oh, this concept super makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like this is pretty straightforward, and like, I think that Magic probably did it first, but it has been ripped off by literally everyone else. So if you have any experience with Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or I don't know, the Digimon card trading game which existed, this should feel familiar, and it definitely does for me.
Yeah.
Man, talk about showing up to a party late.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen the Digimon trading card game, but I know it existed.
I had the cards.
Yeah, I got exactly 1 box pack. That is all that I ever owned.
The ones that exist. I think it's important to say though, Magic has somehow uniquely done it and included those colors and the typing so eloquently in the entire game. Like when you build a red deck, your strategy is very different. Like you are trying to overwhelm with absolute power, and everything has different abilities, and they change the abilities all the time, but they all ladder up to that same core idea.
It still feels when you build a red deck, it feels very red. You could build it in the city set or the Egypt set or the haunted set, but you're always feeling like you're playing a red deck or a blue deck.
And I think Magic is still the only card game to have been able to do something so deep, like have that mentality so deeply ingrained in its mechanics. Because there's a lot of card games out there, I mean, like Ascension or Dominion or things where, yeah, there are different types of cards and you can build combos and you can run certain strategies, but nothing is as deep and eloquent as the 5-color system, in my opinion.
Yes. All right. So if you guys feel pretty solid on that, I'll do one last color thing that I wanted to do before I move on to the next part. Going off the hosts of this podcast, Todd, I would call you our most white host. Not
All right. Well, I don't like how that sounded, but we'll keep
Yeah.
going.
There's just a couple times where it's gonna sound a little iffy, but I'm always talking about the mana in the game and not the color of your skin.
There's our cold open.
Yep, there it is.
Non-lethal methods of removal, healing buffs typically associated with small creatures. All right.
Todd, I would most associate you with white. The more peace and justice and works well on a team thing. Andrew, I'm gonna put you in our most blue character, and
Fair enough.
Matt, I would probably put you as our most green host.
Is that because I'm the noob? I just got thrown into the noob trap.
No,
Yeah.
God damn it!
it's actually
Kyle,
because you're kind of the
Noob
most
trap,
you're the most
noob
like
trap.
crunchy of us. Is
Wait, the
actually
most
why-
what? There was
The
a
most
drop.
Crunchy,
The most
Crunchy?
crunchy.
Crunchy.
Yeah,
Or grungy.
like granola.
yeah, like granola. You're the most granola.
Or grungy. That works
It's
too.
well. It's also because Kyle wanted to say he is a perfect mix of black and red and will destroy us all.
I like to think of myself as red, but who knows? I also feel like I can't be a good judge of that for myself. So that was my fun little. You guys, that's the color you guys fall into.
Neat.
So we'll move on to one last little bit of like things you need to understand before we dive into the deep story, and that is Magic. The Magic the Gathering story takes place in a multiverse, and the worlds in this multiverse are referred to as planes, Planes, not
There it is.
Plains, like
Which we just got done
land.
talking about and
It's-
saying that was the plane we were going to reference.
It's super.
Sorry, I read ahead.
It's deliberately super. It's not deliberately. It's super confusing. It's super confusing for everybody. But think like these are planes, like the math, like a flat surface on a graph. So each world is referred to as a plane, and there are magic users in the multiverse known as planeswalkers that can naturally travel between these planes. Due to an inherent ability they are born with called a spark. It's always there's always a big moment when their spark, quote unquote, ignites, and they'll randomly just teleport themselves to another plane because they have no idea what's going on.
Nice.
But originally, and for like most of this story I'm telling today, planeswalkers were incredibly powerful, almost gods. They were immortal and powerful to the point where they weren't ever represented on cards. The idea was that the two players playing the game were planeswalkers dueling each other. So to summon in another planeswalker would just be like either beyond your ability or unfair because you were calling
It was
in,
like, hey, I gotta go call my friend Brad. Hold on.
exactly.
Yeah.
They were later depowered. We'll talk about that today, how they were depowered. But for most of this story, we are talking about immortal beings. And the core of this story is about the battles of these planeswalkers.
Can't wait.
Any questions any questions on anything we've talked about before we dive into the story?
So are planeswalkers like a race? I guess this is the same question that we asked in the Eternals, but how many planeswalkers are there? Like, are there is it a race? Are there like a finite number?
So that's left deliberately ambiguous because planeswalkers are very popular, so they're always just gonna when people get tired of one, they're gonna bring in more. But it's not a race. It's people that contain this spark. So there are elf planeswalkers. There's a goblin planeswalker. There's a demon planeswalker. The first one we're going to talk about is a dragon. So it can be any being that has some level of intelligence. It just has to contain that inherent ability to teleport to other planes.
It's the Inhuman gene. They just have have the Inhuman gene.
There it is.
All right.
You've got it inside of you, and then you've got to go through some usually traumatic experience to ignite it, which will
The things in your blood activate, and then you can control the force.
You gotta battle Frieza, and then you can go to the astral plane.
all of those things.
Yes to everything.
Puberty's so weird for different races because like some people's bodies change, some people's voices change, some people wake up on a different plane of existence.
Yes. You like when I was 12, I got surprise math boners. But imagine if instead of a surprise math boner, I ended up in
mad
hell.
at recess and transported to like a demon world with no idea what to do.
With a
instead
boner.
of having instead of having to hide an embarrassing situation in your Umbro shorts, you were at battle with a plane walking dragon.
Yeah. Then the math book in front of my pants exploded into flames.
Can we make any more jokes about this? Are we
Are we good? Have we used
think
up,
I'm-
have we
I
used
think
up
I'm
all our
out.
boner material for now?
That's it.
All right.
That's it.
I think that's
All
all
right.
the boner mana we've got.
Hey, there's one more. Wait. I'll tap that.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it
Someone
is.
had to
No.
make that joke.
Yeah.
At least we're done with it early.
Oh, it'll come back. Don't worry. All right, so let's get into the story. So the very first recorded quote unquote event that happened in Magic history is what they call the Great Dragon War.
Sweet.
So it had
Fuck yeah.
it had
Yeah.
these
This story is so metal. I'm
it's
so excited.
it's so 90s comic books. Like it's so like
Yeah.
like we're not understood stuff. So this war saw these elder dragons fighting with more normal dragons for supremacy over the plane Dominaria, which is going to be kind of the core plane for this first part of the story. Everything's going to happen to Dominaria. The elder dragons won. They defeated the normal dragons. And obviously, and then fought amongst themselves for further leadership over the elder dragons. There were 5 siblings that kind of came out on top, with the Planeswalker Nicol Bolas, an elder dragon, killing his 4 other siblings. It ignited his Planeswalker spark, and he became the first Planeswalker of our story.
First Planeswalker of our story, but like not of all time necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The thing I read, the videos I watched, there were older Planeswalkers, but they didn't do anything that we care about yet.
Got it.
He kills his siblings, ascends to a Planeswalker, and fights a demon. This big demon that wants to eat and destroy Dominaria. He fights it and kills it, and that event is so catastrophic, it creates the first of these time rifts that are going to kind of be central to our story. It's just these points, these events that are so big, they're create these kind of Doctor Who stuck moments in time events.
They're like checkpoints. They're fast travel checkpoints.
They're like checkpoints, but they're also really, really bad. They're like scars,
that
time
tracks.
and space.
They're
If
the
that makes
journal entries in Ashton Kutcher's Butterfly Effect.
Yes, exactly. So
I just need to pause this podcast and put Dragon Force in my other headphones.
Yeah.
Or Man of War.
If Master of Puppets isn't playing through this whole podcast, we've done something wrong. Also, we've been content ID'd and we've probably been taken down.
yes,
That too.
So we've kind of had our first of these time rifts, time scars happen to Dominaria, and we've met our first Planeswalker, and Nicol Bolas is actually going to be the big bad for part 2 of this story. He kind of goes away for most of the rest of today, but he's important to know because he sets up the first time rift, and he's our first Planeswalker. He's also really smart. He's got 9 jillion different schemes going on at the same time, and he's a big dragon Planeswalker.
Now here's a question: Are are the planeswalkers like primarily tied to a specific mana color?
No. So there's planeswalkers of all colors. Every Magic user has kind of their preferred colors or whatever.
Sure.
Nicole Bolas, whenever he shows up, is red, black, blue.
Okay.
So,
I was just curious.
Yeah. No.
So I mean, and it makes sense based upon like the characteristics of his story. He's probably not white and green.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked because I want to kind of just whenever we introduce a new character, I'll kind of tell you their colors. Yeah,
And
Nicole.
Kyle, question. I don't know a lot about old Magic, but that was like to have 3 colors. That was like a big deal at the time.
Huge
right?
deal. At the time that the Nicole Bolas card came out, only the other 4 Elder Dragons had 3 colors. Everything else was at best 2 colors. Everything else was 1 color. Like it was a big deal at the time to be 3 colors. So red, black, green, or red, black, blue, I'm sorry, means he's very conniving, he's very like power hungry, and he's very the red means he's just very motivated to do it, is kind of the best way to think about it. So that's Nicole Bolas and the Dragon War. We're gonna jump forward a few thousand years and kind of set up the big bad of our story, the Phyrexians, which are a race of techno zombies. Is the
Nice.
Wait.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
the best way I can put it.
Yo, this art, oh my god, is so good.
Yeah, so if you guys want to go ahead, if you didn't open number 2 of your pictures and look at Nicole Bolas, he's a big dragon with a floating gem between his horns.
Whoa.
And,
Yeah, he's pretty rad. The Phyrexian though fucking looks like like either an awesome album cover or like the front of a David Lynch movie.
yeah, these are all I've got 3 pictures of kind of representative Phyrexians in our thing. That's going to be 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, they are undead beings who are trying to find the most, their best form by mashing together like flesh and metal in whatever shape it takes.
Can I just for a hot second? I need to
go for it.
So, the Yawgmoth, is that it? Is that a thing?
He is our big bad. He is the leader of the Phyrexians.
I know.
Don't read ahead.
I'm not, just a little bit, but like I just need to explain this picture to anyone who doesn't like have time to look at these pictures or is driving and can't. I've got the perfect way to describe the picture that I'm looking at.
Are you
and I
looking?
need you to hear it.
Which one are you looking at?
Number
Or
3.
Yeah.
3. Okay. So, if you know the movie or the videos of Pink Floyd's The Wall, and I want you to think of the actual wall from Pink Floyd's The Wall, and then I want you to imagine if Iron Maiden did an entire cover album of The Wall, what the cover of Iron Maiden's The Wall would look like. And you have the
that's-
picture that I am looking at right
That
now.
is accurate.
So
That's
yeah,
accurate.
you are looking at Noah Bradley's art for the card Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, which like hits a big story beat that we'll cover later. It is sick art. It is so good looking. Yawgmoth
really
is
good.
this he has assumed the form of this giant arena basically, and that character you see standing in the foreground is like about to go battle his mentor to death. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So on Dominaria, we've got the Thran, which are this race of artificers. They're not human, but they might as well be. And they it's the best way I
Good.
could describe it. Like they're
Yeah, no, you're good.
it is
you're
its
good.
own race within Magic, but like how they're different from humans, I couldn't tell you.
It's like half the races in Star Trek. They're just blue or green
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
So they've inhabited Dominaria kind of after this Dragon War. Nicole Bolas is out scouring the multiverse for knowledge, so he's not involved in this anymore. So there is one Thran who becomes doctor to the king, I think, because he saves the king's daughter from dying because he's a necromancer. So he's like this doctor who became obsessed with death, became a necromancer.
The king of Dominaria?
The king of the Thran.
The
Yeah.
king. Does it really matter?
The king doesn't matter. Yawgmoth does.
Cool.
So Yawgmoth is obsessed with death and disease and power and overcoming death. With the help of this planeswalker, Yawgmoth finds a plane to the portal, or finds a portal, I'm sorry, to the plane Phyrexia, which is a plane in and of itself filled with these techno zombies. He gets, through getting more and more into disease and these methods of torture, he gets himself exiled to Phyrexia. He kind of takes over the place and becomes the Lord of Machines on Phyrexia. He's ruler of this plane, and he's trying to obtain this perfect undead state through what is known as phyresis, which just is the zombification method of Phyrexians. It turns you into this flesh metal hybrid zombie. And here he begins plotting his revenge on Dominaria. How are we feeling about that?
I mean, I'm fucking in. I'm so in.
Questions,
Yeah.
concerns.
It is horrifying.
I'm super down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is like, look at some of these pictures of that I've got here for Phyrexia.
The phrase techno zombies is really like spot on.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
Like it's robots with like gross flesh.
Yeah.
What is the worst combination of machinery and flesh you can put together for a like graphic impact? And that is what you find in different variations on these photos.
Very inspired by is it H.R. Geiger, who did the Alien movies? Like very inspired by Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that artwork. A lot of exposed muscle and bone, like coating metal and like flesh kind of forced through hard metal. Very gross, very body horror, very 90s stuff.
Yeah, this one dude has more zippers than a Kingdom Hearts.
It's very like the scariest idea of cyborg that you could think of.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's so the Phyrexians are just my favorite villains from any form of media. They're so terrifying and good.
It kind of reminds me of like if you see like a mermaid or a merman, how aesthetically pleasing it is to see like, oh, they're part fish, part human, but both parts of it are beautiful. Imagine that's not the case.
Yeah.
And it's like flesh and robot.
Yeah.
Like that is flip the equation over and make it flesh and robot, and that is what you get.
Like aesthetics are last on their list. Everything is form over function or just like getting it to work. So everything's like forced together in this twisted, awful thing. So we're going to jump forward a couple more centuries. Yawgmoth's been banished to Phyrexia and doing his own thing there. And we've got two very powerful brothers who are artificers. So they work with metal. They enchant metal and get it to do all kinds of crazy things. Urza and Mishra. Urza will end up being the hero as much as Urza is a hero, because Urza kind of sucks too, of our story. So these two brothers are out looking for this powerful ancient Thran artifact known as the Power Stone, just to power whatever inventions they're working on or whatever.
The most generic ass MacGuffin.
It just shows you how much things have changed.
Yeah.
They're out looking for the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
The Power Stone they find is the one keeping the portal to Phyrexia sealed.
Sure.
So they find it. They disagree on who should use the stone or if they should pull it from this odd looking pedestal that it's on or whatever. And they split the power stone in two. Opening
Seems like a good call.
the portal. Yeah, really great decision making on Urza and Mishra's part. Opening the portal, and they go to war over these two halves of the power stone. That's how badly they want it. This is will be referred to as the Brothers' War in Dominarian history. So Urza is the better of the two as far as like at talent goes right now. So Mishra looks for a ally to help him beat his brother, get the power stone back. And he is met with the Phyrexian demon Gix, which there should be a picture of Gix in the image folder.
Oh, yep, seems right.
Think Zora from Legend of Zelda, but horrifying in muscle and metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gix gets right to work manipulating Mishra, kind of getting him to do what he wants, thinking it's his idea, and transforming and starting to manipulate Mishra into doing things that would help advance Phyrexia into Dominaria. Mishra gets an army of Phyrexians, goes to fight Urza. Urza unleashes this doomsday weapon he created because the Phyrexians are starting to overwhelm him. He doesn't want to lose, obviously, so he unleashes this weapon called the Golgothian Stylex. Doesn't matter.
That's a hell of a name.
Yeah, right? And wipes out everything. His army, Mishra's army, Mishra, everyone except Urza on this battlefield is left standing. Urza ignites his Planeswalker spark. So Urza becomes a Planeswalker in this moment. He wins the quote-unquote Brothers' War. He seals off Phyrexia again to protect Dominaria. The unfortunate thing is the key to Phyrexians spreading, they have this oil. Whatever it touches starts to transform into more Phyrexians. So it's out in the world.
It's like being bit by a zombie.
Yeah, exactly. So this oil's out in the world doing its thing, making more Phyrexians already on Dominaria. So it's the bad has happened. So Urza gets to working on how to counteract the oil, how to fight back against Phyrexia. He's very obviously upset that they corrupted his brother, forced him to kill him. Urza creates a massive robot dragon.
As one does.
As you do.
And sends it through the portal to basically like kamikaze attack Phyrexia. He destroys like a third of the plane with this like dragon and explosion and pisses Yawgmoth off. Yawgmoth, obviously. This is, Yawgmoth has spent a millennia now building this world into his image. He uses mind magic to attack Urza with like a psychic attack. Urza tries to kind of planeswalk away with Yawgmoth attached to his mind and kind of spreads this plague further throughout the multiverse. So like he's planet hopping basically, and every time he touches down, more of the Phyrexian plague spreads across the multiverse.
Uh-oh. Done fucked up.
I'm sure that's not an issue ever again, though.
No. Don't. Why would you need to worry about that? He finally shakes him, ends back up on Dominaria with a new vigor to eradicate Phyrexia. He's super pissed now. He was just pissed before, now he's super pissed. For the record, before we get much further, Urza is usually depicted as a 5-color planeswalker, just because he lives long enough to dip into every realm of magic. With the core of him being blue for the artifacts. And then Mishra is also a blue mage with kind of hints of black and red in him. Yawgmoth is black. If that is a black mage. If that wasn't clear,
It was.
Good.
This kind of sounds like the beginning to Scientology.
Well, you have
like-
you don't have to worry about your thetans yet, so we're
Yeah.
good.
No,
Yeah.
But like,
no thetans here.
I was ready for you to be like, every universe has Phyrexians, and that is why we are all sad, because we all have a little bit of Phyrexian in us.
No,
There it is.
none of that. None of that.
That's actually Kyle's third quarter turn in the stories. Like, actually, I've been telling you the history of Scientology, and you all owe me money.
If you guys each give me $200, I'll clear you of the Phyrexian plague, and you'll
And
feel
we ascend to
so-
the next level.
Exactly.
Well, I've given a lot more money than that to Wizards of the Coast over the years, so that
God.
wouldn't be very far off.
God. All right, so Urza's back on Dominaria. He's got a newfound hatred of Phyrexians. So he founds the Academy of Talaria, which I've got a picture of in your images. One of the most busted cards in Magic's history. If you look at that card,
Oh fuck!
I don't know what that means. Why is it good?
It generates. So at the time, Wizards didn't know how to balance artifacts because their color artifacts were colorless, so like they could go into any deck. Didn't
Okay.
know how to balance them in the game. So activating Talaria's Academy, Talarian Academy would typically generate like 7+ mana at a time, which is a lot.
Yeah.
An easy exploit.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So he creates the Academy of Talaria. He kind of goes and recruits other mages, other planeswalkers. He gets them all in his school to help him work on a solution to the Phyrexian problem or whatever. One such is a time mage named Teferi. Got an image of him in your search. Looks
The hero of Dominaria.
The hero of Dominaria looks kind of like what's
Idris Elba? Are you gonna
Idris
say
Elba.
Idris
Yep.
Elba?
looks
Yeah,
it's Idris
kind of
Elba.
like Idris Elba.
100%. 100%.
Who he helps Urza create a time portal that Urza hopes to use to like stop him and his brother from opening the portal to Phyrexia, save his brother's life, undo all the bad things he did fighting the Phyrexians. Urza creates this golem that goes through the portal, that would go through the portal for him because, same rules as everything. You can't send organic matter through the time portal or whatever. So he creates this golem made out of silver named Karn. Another important character, got a picture of him in your notes.
Oh.
That's my favorite band.
The R is not backwards in this one.
Karn, a big, beefy silver boy. So yeah, we've got Karn, he's this big, beefy golem who the good news is he gets to stay in our story and keep doing badass things. So they have Karn, their man, to go through the portal. They fire up the time portal and surprise, it explodes. First trial run of the portal, it blows up, destroys Talarian Academy, kills almost everybody. Urza's got another thing to feel terrible about. And we've created another time rift. I should have mentioned the Doomsday device created another time rift as well. When Urza
Sure, of course.
destroyed the Phyrexians, we got another time rift.
It was
and-
assumed.
and we've got another one now. The fun thing about this one is it creates these weird pockets all over Dominaria where time just goes screwy. So you can like walk into this like time bubble and like time will speed up super fast and like you'll age 80 years in the 2 seconds you walk through the portal. Or you go in and time stops for everyone around you kind of thing. So being the resourceful mage he is, Urza uses these time anomalies, kind of like the hyperbolic time chamber in Dragon Ball Z, to
Hell
create
yeah.
a good
Mhm.
cultural touchstone for you. He'll send his students in there, or he'll go into the ones that like slow time down, and you'll still study for decades in a couple hours. So it gets him. He uses these to kind of catch up on the like millennia head start Yawgmoth had on Phyrexia to develop his technology or whatever.
Unrelated note, I've been trying to make training in a hyperbolic time chamber a key phrase in my professional life. So
I wish you luck on that endeavor because it sounds great.
Yeah.
it's not working terrible.
It's also not working well.
Correct.
So using these time pockets, Urza starts trying to gather a team of planeswalkers, building an ultimate weapon, with the end goal of fighting off the Phyrexians once and for all.
He's like an interdimensional Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, kind of. He's putting the Avengers together, but they're all planeswalkers, and all of them hate each other because they're these big
Cool.
personalities, and of course they do.
Got it.
So, being an artificer, guy who builds machines, he gathers together all these powerful artifacts from all over Dominaria and kind of enchants them to work together. He builds this airship, so we get into like this weird realm of like sky pirates for a while in Magic's history.
Fuck yeah, we do.
Good.
Motherfucking sky pirates.
So he builds
Matt's back in. All right.
Yeah. I
Hell yeah.
love throwing out these phrases that get Matt back on board.
I never go out. I just kind of like zone into acceptance. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
okay, all right, sure, fine, whatever. Wait, fucking sky pirates? So that's where I'm at.
So he collects all these artifacts together on a ship he built called the Weatherlight, which happens he collapsed an entire other plane into a small stone to power the Weatherlight, which is a whole story in of itself that like I didn't have time to put in this. So those artifacts, the Weatherlight and Karn, all get kind of transformed into the legacy weapon, which is this big world-ending weapon you need all the parts of to fire, detonate, whatever.
You need to get Knights of the Round and go underwater for
Yes.
20 minutes so that you can fight it. Yeah.
Exactly. The idea being open the portal, shoot the legacy weapon through it, destroy Phyrexia once and for all.
If I'm reading this card right, if it were ever to be destroyed off the battlefield, it just goes back into your deck.
Yeah.
Like
So-
it just never goes away.
Yeah. I don't know if that necessarily ties in with like what it does in the story.
Sure.
It's just that's kind of there just to ensure you paid 7 mana for your artifact. You
You're
got
gonna get
5
it.
colors together. You're gonna get it. You might just have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
So in that picture, by the way, are all the artifacts and pieces that make up the legacy weapon. You've got Karn, you've got a bunch of gems, you've got the Weatherlight in the background, a book.
Just like this poor man's head.
Yeah, whose fucking head is that, man?
That's
Well,
what's his
it's
name?
We'll get to
yeah,
that. But that's
isn't-
Urza.
Yeah, it's Urza
That's
just
Urza,
chilling in
yeah.
front of him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Urza in the picture with Karn. Karn is holding Urza. And
Oh, it looks like he just like has his head on a. like,
It does.
Here's my weapon.
we'll put a pin in that.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because Urza at this time he's got 2 power stones that replaced his eyes. Whole thing.
Oh, he's not Samuel L. Jackson. He's Thanos.
Yeah. So he's
Yeah.
whole thing there,
With his
but he's
infinity eyes.
those 2
Yeah.
stones are part of the legacy weapon. His eyes are part of the legacy weapon.
His infinity disembodied head.
Infinity face.
So Urza realizes like this legacy weapon, the assembled parts of the legacy weapon might not need enough. he would need kind of a person to wield the legacy weapon, and he like manipulates these families into having a son that he kind of bioengineers to be the perfect soldier. Not great stuff, very eugenicsy.
Yeah.
But that soldier is born and raised and trained and named Gerard Capuchin. And he is a swashbuckling sky pirate. If you look in your picture, he is Captain Flynn. He's the guy. He's kind of created to be this.
Oh yeah, he fucks.
Yeah, this white mannered guy. And he is destined to be the ultimate weapon against Phyrexia.
He will be the ultimate white guy.
Yeah.
There it is.
He's the Shadow the Hedgehog of this universe.
Yeah, more or less. So we'll jump back. We've kind of that's what Urza's been doing. We'll kind of go back to what Yawgmoth's been doing this whole time. He's been trapped on Phyrexia. He's still working on creating the perfect techno zombie. But he wants to find his way back to Dominaria.
Those words put together either mean these like weird monstrous robot like zombie things,
or like zombie Daft Punk.
Yeah, it is. That is
my
the
favorite
ending
Dead
of the
Mouse album.
sentence. Yeah.
So
Can I
Go
wait?
ahead.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Yawgmoth at this point has he yet become a battle arena, or is he a being of other shape and size?
He at this point is kind of like not the battle arena. That's a very specific moment, but he is Phyrexia and Phyrexia is him. Like he's achieved like perfect autonomy over all the beings of Phyrexia.
Like Ego, like
Yeah.
MCU Star-Lord's dad.
Very much like
Yeah.
Ego.
Okay.
I was gonna
Cool,
say
that helps.
Gozer in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, Gozer is also good. Yes.
Whatever he has done on Phyrexia is like it is complete. He has done it. It is his vision, and it is terrible. It is terrifying and perfect all at the same time. So Urza is trying to come back to Dominaria, wipe it out, assimilate it into the Phyrexians, kill Urza. And his plan to do that involves creating this artificial plane called Wrath. So he births a new plane into existence. However he does it, the magic he uses to create it, he can teleport his armies to Wrath, but he can't do it anywhere else, which is important. The whole planeswalking hurdle is what is keeping Yawgmoth trapped on Phyrexia. So he grows and grows and grows Wrath until it cannot be contained anymore, and it overlays itself onto Dominaria, which is this terrible event. Like, imagine an entire plane of existence crashing into Earth. What that would mean, and it's full of Phyrexians, full of these awful, awful monsters. Creates another time rift, this, another scar in time and space, and the Phyrexian invasion begins. Phyrexians are just pouring into Dominaria and fucking shit up.
Is Dominaria the stand-in for Earth? Is that like that the idea?
It's the high fantasy Earth. It's the
Okay.
Yeah. So the people of Dominaria band together under Gerard's leadership. He's kind of the human face of the war. He's the pilot, the captain of the Weatherlight, and they do their best to hold off the Phyrexians. Meanwhile, Urza builds 9 of what are called Titan suits. And the best way, there's a picture of him in the image.
Yeah, there is.
But the best way to think of them at home are these like Planeswalker powered mechs. So
Hell yeah, we have mechs now? This is the
mechs
best.
now.
They kind of look like Big Daddies from BioShock.
Yeah.
This is a sci-fi fantasy bingo card.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
great.
We check all the boxes as we go through this. Yeah, Big
Yeah.
Daddy definitely, like, the creators of BioShock definitely were familiar with magic when they created the Big Daddy.
Yeah.
So Urza, the 8 other planeswalkers who've teamed up with him, all take the Titan suits to Phyrexia, and he's got them strapped up with bombs. The whole plan is to get to the core of Phyrexia, drop the bombs off, blow them up, and get out of Dodge. They do the first half of that. They get to the core of Phyrexia, and that is where Yawgmoth is. He is now in roughly his giant living arena state.
Iron Maiden's the wall.
Iron Maiden's the wall. Urza is so, like, impressed and overwhelmed and just, like, realized kind of how out of his league he is at this moment, that he has a complete, and I think part of it too is he's partially corrupted by Yawgmoth at this point. Like, they just fought through like 9 levels of hell to get to the core. He has a change of heart, surrenders to Yawgmoth on the condition that they, like, work together to continue to achieve Yawgmoth's vision. Maybe with a little less, like, torture and needless death. Yawgmoth says, hell nah.
Yeah.
Forces Urza to basically tells Urza, like, bow and swear fealty to me or die. And you have to prove your loyalty to me by killing your effectively son, Gerard, in a combat, and reveals that Gerard has been kidnapped and there the whole time.
So that explains what we were seeing.
And that is the thing you see in that image. Yeah. Is Gerard going to
That's image number 3 for those of you playing at home.
Image number 3 for those of you playing at home. They fight. Urza kind of, like, snaps out of it and realizes that Yawgmoth's manipulating him, controlling him, whatever, and allows Gerard to behead him. Urza lets Gerard chop his head off so that Gerard can escape.
There it is.
Yeah. Gerard takes Urza's head because it's still got 2 pieces of the legacy weapon in his eyes. And as they're escaping, Urza's decapitated head speaks to Gerard and basically says, like, I'm a planeswalker. I'm not tied to this body. Beheading me doesn't kill me. And I'm being kept alive by these pieces of the legacy weapon in my eyes. And that is what you see in that other image,
where Karn was holding a head.
Karn is holding, and I've got actually image number 18.
So let's talk about 18, because 18 is a Rush album. Like, I've seen that. I have that Rush album. It definitely exists.
It's either Rush or Trans-Siberian Orchestra, because it also looks very TSO.
Yeah.
For those of you not able to see it right now, 18 is an image of Urza's head on a metal crank in some kind of workshop. And it is just
great.
that. It is Urza's decapitated head.
There's a clapping monkey in the background.
Yeah, it's surprisingly serene.
I can't read all the books, but one of the books in the background says sibling rivalry. There's something, living something now. Like, I'm sure all the books are tied to either his story or missing his body.
So, Wizards has done 3 joke sets now as well.
Nice.
They've done 3 kind of joke sets of Magic. This is an image from one of those joke sets. So that's why, like, all the stuff in the background is kind of self-referential to this stuff.
Yeah.
But it was also just the best picture of Urza's decapitated head that I could find.
So I'm doing a Google search, and this is a newer Planeswalker, and the text on the card literally is head to askurza.com. Like that's the instructions.
So it was the most recent joke set. They built a whole website around the functioning of this card. Not important, but if you want, go to askurza.com. Kind of taps into like all the crazy powers Urza has wielded over the years. So yeah, where did I end up? Oh, Urza's decapitated head kept alive by the legacy weapon. Cool. Yawgmoth follows Gerard through the portal that is now opened to Dominaria, finally like returning to the plane he's sought to return to for thousands and thousands of years. And he's on Dominaria. This is it. Like it's happening. Urza and Karn and Gerard all learn how to activate the legacy weapon. They get all the parts together on the Weatherlight. Gerard has to die in the process. Like that's part of it. Is like Urza built in that like cost of human life, so you don't detonate it for no reason or whatever. And Karn does it. Karn kills Gerard, activates the legacy weapon, kills Yawgmoth.
Nice.
Urza, being, containing two of the pieces, has to be there. He dies in the process. Gerard obviously dies in the process. And the cool thing is, in the process, Karn absorbs Urza's Planeswalker spark and becomes a Planeswalker. The first like non-living or artificially created Planeswalker. And he leaves Dominaria.
So by this point, Karn had grown such a fan following that people were like, give us more Karn. The internet wants more Karn. More
Yes.
Karn or we riot.
And the cool thing about Karn is not affiliated with any color. Where like Urza is all color, like knows all colors of magic. Karn kind of practices colorless magic and is a colorless planeswalker, which is very
really kick-ass.
Yeah. So that's kind of the like that's the end of the Phyrexian invasion. Dominaria is now safe from Phyrexia, give or take, the remaining minions that are on Dominaria, but like Yawgmoth is no longer trying to destroy Dominaria. Urza is dead, but Phyrexia is effectively destroyed and sealed off from the rest of the multiverse.
Okay.
Questions, concerns, comments.
Cool. It is surprisingly I'm surprised at how well I'm following the story so far.
I'm really liking this.
Yeah.
Right?
This is really good.
It's surprisingly good. Like it makes sense, and these are all like it's not incredibly convoluted. Like it sounds more convoluted than it actually is.
Once you get past like the names and the like the MacGuffin of it all, like it is a very cool story.
So let me ask you this, and maybe I don't know this. I know this is a lot of this is before when you were actually playing the game. So can you explain a little bit how does the story develop as the expansions come out, or rather is the story kind of like the backdrop, like to explain the cards? Like, did this story already happen, or when these cards were released, or
so you can play the game and enjoy the game completely without understanding any of the story. The story is released in parts as the sets come out. So usually the sets at the time were grouped into like chunks of 3. So like 3 sets would tell their own complete story and have story beats from this story like interwoven in between that. So like each set effectively is a chapter of this story. If you want to think about it that way.
How many years or expansions have we just covered?
So Magic the Gathering was first released in 1993. We just hit 2001.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so we're
wow,
about 7 years into the story.
Got it. Okay.
There were the first 3 sets didn't have any of this story in it. There were some offshoots that like we wrapped up in like one sentence. Like the whole like the Weatherlight is powered by a collapsed plane was a whole set, and that like we got everything we needed out of that set for
Got it.
this story.
Nice.
in
That was the
one
filler
sentence.
episode.
Yeah. So like that's why it's spread out over so many years. Is just because like some sets are just like, and this is what's relevant to this
Yeah.
story. Move on.
Sometimes you fight Frieza on the planet Namek for 23 episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do want to like, and I don't mean this in any way to be a dig
Nope.
at
Go for
Kingdom Hearts, but I think that it's really interesting how much easier I feel like it is to follow the Magic story than the Kingdom Hearts story.
Yeah, I wanted to die after. Well, okay, so this is so funny side content. So when we were planning to do this episode, I was texting Kyle. Kyle was saying like how excited he was, and I was like, "Yeah, just wait until you watch those 6 hours of unsupported lore videos." And first off, Kyle was like, "No need, it's all in here, Big Cat." Second up, which is we'll talk about that in a separate thread. But second, I think that definitely goes to show the cohesiveness. But you know, both pieces of content or both pieces of literature had 15 years of development, and you know, Magic did it a lot fucking better.
And it helped. I mean, I think it definitely helped. Like Magic didn't have to release all of the story at like all of that part of the story at once.
You can titrate it. Yeah,
they could spread it out. They didn't have to dump all the content at one time, so they could figure out how to do it.
And you have to work with Disney.
You didn't have to work in Disney.
I think that's the part I wasn't going to bring up, but yeah, that part.
Yeah. So we're not quite done with Dominaria. Dominaria's it's got all these time rifts. It's those scars from these big events.
All rifts.
And those are bad. Those are not good news. So we're gonna jump ahead. I think it's another 100 years or something from the Phyrexian invasion, and Karn is off planeswalking around, learning about his new abilities, seeing what other planes have to offer, etc., etc. But he leaves probes on Dominaria, just little an alarm system basically to let him know, hey, the Phyrexians are like back, or this is bad. Come, just pop back in. One such probe becomes corrupted through whatever reason, and becomes this powerful wish-granting artifact known as the Mirari. You know, anyone who finds it, like, they'll touch it and they'll immediately see like their greatest wishes come to life. It's like the mirror of Esdrid in Harry Potter.
Mirror of Erised.
Yeah, thank you. I can't spell or read or talk.
That's okay.
Same.
The catch being it is also a giant monkey's paw. So like in the process of having your dream fulfilled, everyone around you dies and suffers and blah blah blah.
Yikes.
As you do.
As it happens.
Pretty standard fare.
So a minor war breaks out over the Mirari. Not nearly on the level of two battling planes seeking domination over each other, but like a small island continent goes to war over this Mirari. It changes hands a few times. That means different things in that story, but it ends up in the hands of the barbarian Kamal. I think I've got 2 pictures of him in there because he starts out as a red barbarian, has a change of heart, and goes all druidic. And he's one of my favorite like minor characters in the story.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, he looks kind of like if Stone Cold Steve Austin like stayed buff and laid off the beers.
Yeah.
He gets it, realizes what it is, that it's too dangerous to let anyone have, and he puts it on his sword and like jams his sword into the ground in the middle of this, you know, dangerous, inhabitable forest, and lets it, and he leaves it there and like meditates while it's there to protect it or whatever. So the Mirari, its power kind of spills out into the forest and all of Dominaria by extension, and it just starts warping the magic and the citizens of this plane with new shapes and weird powers. And it's all in the story of Odyssey and the Odyssey and Onslaught blocks. Well, yada yada, the details. But there's an angel, there's an undead woman, not quite a zombie, but a zombie woman, and a human woman, all merge with the Mirari, become this war god Corona, who is like the manifestation of all the mana on Dominaria, who ends up defeated. Another time rift. This causes Karn to come back. He takes the Mirari away with him and uses it basically as a seed to create his own plane. He has this moment of like, well, I've got these godlike powers. I've always wanted to see what this life thing was about. I'm going to create life, and creates his own plane called Mirrodin, which is this artifact land. It's a metal world.
How difficult or how easy is it to create your own universe or
It's
your
not-
own world?
so-
in this
Asking for a
universe?
friend.
So as
Yeah.
well, we don't get too into it here. It's not easy. So Yawgmoth did it, and like he couldn't maintain it, and it collapsed and spilled into Dominaria.
Mhm. You seem to have a lot of these situations where it's like, I'll make my own world with blackjack and
Yeah.
hookers.
Yeah. And Karn,
Exactly.
and Karn does it, and he screws it up too, and that whole plane, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But it doesn't go well whenever anyone tries to create their own plane. So, jump ahead another. I have 1,000 in my notes. I think it's less than that. Jump ahead again. Karn is off creating Mirrodin, or he's created it and left it to do its own thing. And all of the time rifts left all over Dominaria finally come home to roost. The plane is almost entirely out of mana. There are earthquakes and explosions and people gobbled up by like time anomalies left and right. It's bad. It's an apocalyptic state on Dominaria. Teferi, finally, he comes back to Dominaria. He's blue aligned, if I didn't specify that. Blue aligned time mage.
Can you just refresh me on who Teferi is?
Idris Elba.
Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
What the fuck has he been doing this whole time?
Yeah.
He's just like, yo, what's up? I'm back.
Yeah, more or less.
Because of plot, I'm here now.
Yeah,
What's up?
more or less. He was one of the 9 in like the Titan suits,
Okay.
and then after that he went and dicked off. But
Sure.
so Teferi comes back and is like, all right, we gotta repair some of these time rifts, or like the whole multiverse could collapse on Dominaria. It bad. It real bad. So he assembles a team. He's got some of the planeswalkers who were there with fighting the Phyrexian invasion. He's got a new one named Venser, who's a blue aligned teleportation mage. He's got an elf woman who's like a battle mage, who's another planeswalker, and they get to work closing these time rifts up and healing the world. And the only way they really know how to do that, or they find out how to do it, is like Teferi does this big spell. He's from Dominaria originally, so his home world is his hometown is one of the places affected by these time rifts. He like heals the time rift over his world and realizes he's lost his planeswalker spark. So like that's kind of the cost of doing this. So they go around. They do close all these time rifts. Nicole Bolas from the beginning of our story is there.
The dragon.
Yeah, the dragon. He recognizes that these time rifts are bad and gonna negatively affect the whole universe, which he lives in. So he's like, yeah, I'll help you close them up. He kills another planeswalker and uses their spark to close his time rift rather than give up his own, because he's a power hungry dragon.
It's fair.
And they do it. They close the time rifts. Karn was there as well. He closes one, and like in the process, like as he's losing his spark, he's like, "Peace, I'm going to Mirrodin. Like I'll be there if you need me because I can't planeswalk anymore." And they do it. They save the multiverse. This is known as the Mending, and kind of the repercussions of this. This is what depowers planeswalkers to allow them to be like represented on cards.
Oh.
So now
Okay.
now planeswalkers are more on the average power level of your they're on the power level of like an above average magic user, but that's it. And they can teleport to other.
And correct me if I'm wrong,
planes.
Kyle, but like mechanically, this is a big change in Magic.
So the set following this, Wizards introduces its first 5 planeswalker cards ever. It's a big deal. Everyone's either super happy or super upset about it, depending on what side of it you
Probably.
land on.
They're nerds, so usually the latter.
It's the first new type of card they introduced to Magic since 1993.
That's
Holy
crazy.
shit.
That's
That's
insane.
amazing.
Yeah.
What year did that happen?
This was, I'm gonna mess this
This next
up.
card says 2018.
That's way too late. I was in high school my junior year, so like 2006, 2007 this
Yeah.
happens.
Holy shit. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Huge deal. Best financial decision Wizards made, because Planeswalker cards end up super popular and they sell jillions of.
That is the entire reason why you can go to a comic book store and buy individual cards for $25
Yeah.
and more so.
Mhm.
I mean, this is like I would map on, because this is like when I got into it. I would map this on to the difference between like Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3,
Yeah.
which is like
Okay.
adding the idea of adding heroes. Like that was what
Yep.
was happening in a lot of strategy games at this point, and that's where everything was going. So it was like, okay, well, we're going to add in heroes to, kind of drive this a little further.
Yeah. So this is a big deal. Like in the story, it's a big deal too. I don't want to like discount that, because we're doing the lore cast, and like all of a sudden all these planeswalkers who thought they were immortal, have already been alive for thousands and thousands of years, are like faced with their own mortality. But like also huge ramifications for the game. So Nicole Bolas helped close the time rifts, suddenly realizes he's like immediately depowered, lost his immortality, super upset about it. Like his whole
Yeah, I don't think
thing-
he would be the guy to be cool with that.
his whole thing until now was like being the most powerful, and he lost almost all his power in an instant. So that kind of launches our second arc. That'll be what I cover in arc 2, is Nicole Bolas's plot to regain his power.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But we've got a little post log here on Mirrodin. So Karn
with our silver boy Karn.
with our silver boy Karn. So Karn is isolated on Mirrodin. He, in his battles with Phyrexia, kind of picked up that Phyrexian oil that transforms things into new Phyrexians.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So Mirrodin becomes corrupted with this Phyrexian oil. The seeds are kind of there when the first time they go to Mirrodin. They go back to Mirrodin in the game as well, which and it starts to become new Phyrexia, like literally called new Phyrexia. Karn himself is corrupted. He goes insane trying to like fight off this corruption, but also like succumbing to it. He believes himself to be the new Lord of Machines, which you might remember was Yawgmoth's old title. And
Hell yeah.
and he's trying to fight off this corruption and save his plane, but losing. He's about to completely succumb to the oil's influence and become the new Lord of Machines when Venser, who came to Mirrodin to find Karn for whatever reason, he sacrifices himself to purify Karn, gives Karn another planeswalker spark so he can planeswalk again, and Karn kind of is freed from his madness. Unfortunately, it's too little too late. Mirrodin has completely become new Phyrexia now, and Karn is forced to leave his created plane to this infection. And that is where we will end part
Oh,
one.
that's
Man.
so cool.
I
Wow.
like that.
I love new Phyrexia.
Yes.
This is fucking rad.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm so into this.
Yeah.
Isn't it just like a cool story?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
I came in full admission. I came in skeptical because I thought this was going to be another whole like we created a big story or we created a card game. Oh, we need a storyline now. It's gonna be bad.
No, it's really
Um,
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was not. This is definitely. So you kind of asked earlier, like, was the story kind of retrofit to the game or vice versa? And the answer is really like, as they made each set, they figured
Mhm.
out the story
Yeah.
and released it all at once. Like it was not a like, oh no, we have the cards. What are we gonna do with them? It's like the
Yeah.
story serves the game, and the game
Well,
serves the story.
It's funny too because like I said, I've been in and out, and this is where we are is the exact point when I started playing like new Phyrexia. Like I know
Yeah.
that name,
Yeah.
and it's really cool to get that context because for those of you that are like maybe not super familiar, a lot of the different expansions, like it just looks like fantasy garble, but those are all like actual planes and like places that all connect back to this. So it really is like way deeper than it appears.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that you could have absolutely no idea and be none the wiser.
Yeah.
Right. And I will just throw this out because it is I can't wait for when they get to it again. They have not touched new Phyrexia since about 2009 when the set came out. They've kind of like they've hopped back in like some bonus sets that pull things from everywhere, but like they've not told they told how it transformed, and then they have not done anything with it because they've been focused on the Nicole Bolas story that I've kind of teased at. So
Well, it's cool that you know that is a thing.
yeah, and especially some of the implications of what's been of the big bads in the second part of the story. There are things introduced that we haven't talked about yet that I hope come to fight Phyrexia, because that is just super cool.
Yeah. Kyle, thank you. Thank you for this.
Yeah, man.
Questions? Anything you want to clarify? Any just last cries before we sign off and release this into the world?
Yeah.
My questions will probably, at least for me personally, best be held over to the next one where I'm going to ask you to make wild assumptions as to what happens next, because that's my favorite thing that we do sometimes. But I think I'm golden here.
Okay. I think you'll be able to once I introduce the other things, you might be able to figure out what I hope happens next, because it's what everyone
do we think that
comes
they
next.
split into teams and go back in times to collect the Infinity Gems?
No.
Oh, okay.
Andrew, did you have anything?
I just wanted to say I personally can't wait until we get into the Vampires of Innistrad, because that's my personal favorite.
Innistrad definitely ties into part 2, so we'll go back. We'll get there. We'll get there. Patience, young one.
I guess the only thing I have is like, well, I mean, first off, I didn't say it when everybody else did, but thanks, man. Like, this was awesome. Super rad and super good time. But for people like me who enjoyed the shit out of all of this and are now interested of like, all right, I I see the drug. I like the drug. How do I start? Where do I begin? What's the tell me?
How do you get your first taste?
Me asking for a friend who's definitely not me. How do? What's next?
So, if you're interested in just the lore, we'll put some link. I'll put some links in the show notes to like some other crash courses that hit on a bit more of the details, go a bit more into the long fantasy names that I didn't want to bog you down with through this. So we'll definitely get you some links to some more of the story, because like as I said, this was an overview of the whole book, and like every chapter of the book tells its own like equally deep story. So it's just, there's a lot that we haven't unpacked that you can unpack on your own. And if you like this and want to see it on the cards, find someone who plays Magic. They've got an extra deck and are dying to play with someone new, I'm sure. And just ask them to teach you the game, because
Matt, I've got a couple pre-built decks for you.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Hey Kyle, maybe I think a fun way to close this out. Why don't you tell us a little bit? Do you want to go over like what is your like top 1 or 2 favorite decks you've built, and then tell us, do you have any anecdotes of you playing this competitively?
So I really like playing artifact based decks, because they're broken and they do kooky things. But my favorite one I've played that I can remember was it was a mono blue deck, lovingly titled Big Dumb Artifacts. But the whole point was just generating a ton of mana that would power out these big like 10, 11, 12 cost cards, which is really high for Magic if you don't know, and then just beat my opponent to death with them. I played semi-competitively in high school. I would go to there was a local comic book stores would have like little tournaments every Friday night that I would go and play in. Doing okay enough in those, I felt I could go to a more regional sized one.
And how'd that go?
I did fine.
Yeah.
I think I top 64 to top 32.
Okay,
which
sure.
isn't terrible, but like I definitely I had 2 or 3 good games and then it just got like steamrolled the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So this was like what I did in middle school and high school, when I wasn't in school or in drama. Like this was my hobby. This is my nerd cred, and it's nerdier than all your nerd creds.
It's not nerdier, it's just different.
Sure.
Being a nerd isn't a competition, Kyle.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I like how quickly Andrew jumped on that one. I was just gonna let it be there. It's like no.
I'm sorry. Did you play a real time or text based RPG, massively multiplayer RPG? Because I sure as fuck did.
If you want me to answer the question, it's no.
I did give Wizards of the Coast thousands and thousands of dollars to play this game.
That.
I have a fond memory of me and Kyle actually in Meyer at 1:30 in the morning I was holding a case of beer and 14 booster packs of Magic cards, and it was just me and Kyle. I looked at Kyle and like, what are we doing with our lives? It was like I might have been 23,
You haven't played Magic if you haven't looked at the things you were about to buy, seen the total you were about to spend, and just been like
what I like was like that's that's a week of groceries.
Yeah.
Yep, it sure was.
Yep.
Like you were given the choice between choosing booster packs for Magic or like eating vegetables, and you're like,
Todd, I had Jimmy John's every day, so I was good.
That's fair.
Yeah, this was when we were working jobs that like we could get 2 of our 3 meals a day from at work.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's fair.
Why not spend that money on Magic cards?
Exactly.
So thanks everyone for listening. This has been our first Magic episode of Flavor Text, podcast within a podcast of Debate This. If you like what you hear, please follow, listen, subscribe on social media at DebateThisCast, or our website, debatethiscast.com. And if you have any issue or want to come play Magic with us, come meet us behind the swing sets, nerds.